Part 2 of my conversation with John Benton will start after a quick message from our sponsor.
Like I told you, I grew up and had, some diverse and fun offs with family and growing up in the situation I was in. But I did learn a trade. And
well, did you think through high school, like you had college aspirations and I want to do this?
Well, okay, so I got my act together and actually was able to get back in AP classes, advanced placement courses, and my grade point average wasn't great, but I was starting to excel again. I felt like I was starting to become good, something good again, and I took the pre-sat and I scored high, like really high, so I was pretty happy about that.
Good.
And I thought I would maybe go to college. But I was living by myself. I left home when I was 16.
Okay.
And I worked at a hardware store, and I had my own little apartment, and I did not drop out of school. I didn't miss a day of school, like all that stupid like senior ditch day and shit like that.
Would you work after school and work on the weekends?
I worked. Well, I had a couple different jobs, but the ones that kept me going was the hardware store. And I also worked at a dairy over in Huntington Park.
Yeah.
So I just worked. I found jobs. I did side jobs. I just worked.
Whatever you could to pay the rent.
Yeah.
Put food on.
And take care of my car. I had my little Volkswagen that I was always working on. And that was like a survival thing. It wasn't, I had to have my car, But I really did want to go to college at a higher level. And I had joined the debate team at Southgate High.
Really?
Yeah, Mrs. Carter was the teacher, and
it's funny how we always remember the teachers that made a difference.
Well, she was awesome. And God bless her. I think she's had some health problems lately. She may have passed. I don't know, but anyway, she was just a fabulous lady. And first day we sat down. And there were probably 25 people in the room. And she described a scenario where you're in a bunker and your job is to push the button when you're commanded to push the button. And you get a transmission that's kind of garbled, but you think you may have heard that rockets are imminent heading towards the United States. But you're not 100% sure. But it's, you heard it, and you've been trained. And she goes, I just want to see where you guys are at. Like, do you push the button or do you wait for something else? Because you only have X amount of time.
Right.
And who would push the button?
Yeah, that's a difficult scenario.
Oh, the whole class raised their hand except for me. Because it was during the...
So you chose not to push the button?
Yeah.
Okay.
I chose not. And so she says, wow. Okay, well, all you guys are hawks, and you're the dove. I'm like, what? She goes, that's this semester, hawks, doves. You're going to debate against all of them. She goes, these are the rules I live by, and we're going to live by it. So I had to debate the whole rest of the class on different topics. And the fun thing about debate class is that you have to choose. You don't choose your side sometimes.
Right.
It's almost like an attorney-like perspective. Mm-hmm. Your client may be guilty of sin, but you work within the rules and the law, and you do your best to defend this person, right?
Right.
So you do the same thing with a topic. And I ended up competing and doing very well, and I was given the honor of representing LA Unified at this thing, a symposium called the University of Young Americans, where we got to do a debate on something we really believed in. And it was on CBS News. It was downtown. And that event took place the day after I left home.
Wow.
I was living in my car. That was the first night I slept. I went to the University of Young Americans platform symposium in the clothes I had worn the day before. And I pulled it off. But, I've been telling you all these stories, but and I'm sharing at this level because right now it's a pretty challenging time, and you have to choose whether to give up or stay in the fight.
Right, absolutely.
And I don't know if I'm hard-headed or stupid.
I was going to say, what kept you in the fight?
Because I didn't feel like everything was really that bad. Like if you're like being lowered into liquid metal, you're done. But you can cry, piss your pants, or you can laugh. I'm usually the guy that's going to laugh. Okay? I just like, oh, man. Because there's been a couple times when I've been really broken. And I a lot of times I got to explain to you why. I laugh. Like you laugh at somebody falling downstairs because it's, oh, my God. I laugh at myself that way.
That's your reaction.
I still do. Brenda, my wife, would, because I'll like giggle to myself like, oh, shit, And I'll be looking at like my finger because it's almost been amputated and it's covered, it's all sewed back together. And it just makes me laugh. And I think what it is like, shit, I'm still here. I'm still here. This is great. Because I know it's not going to last forever.
Right.
But while it's happening,
in the moment, it's funnier now.
But getting back to the topic, I loved my little car. It was everything. And I did live in that car for a while. And then I stayed with some friends a little bit. And then I was able to get my apartment. And towards the end of high school, I got a job working at Far West Plastics Machinery on Washington Boulevard, 5001 Washington Boulevard, somewhere off Atlantic there. And my mom, God bless her, she was looking for better jobs for me, like a job, not like 3 or 4 jobs, like doing the Jamaican hustle.
Right.
She was worried about me, like her boy, right? So she saw this ad in the paper. She gave me the ad. I remember looking at it. She tore it out, like cut it out. And she says, call this man. His name, Larry Miller. And she says, I already talked to him. He sounds like a nice man, and he needs you.
Bombs.
So, mind you, when I was 17, 18, I looked like I was 12. I was very young looking because just the way I was put together. And so the ad said, looking for skilled mechanic with electrical background. And I'm in high school, for Christ's sake. I haven't quite graduated yet. But I went down and I walked in and there's an office lady there, like, receptionist. Mm-hmm. And she says, she looked at me, she was so funny. She's like, can I help you? And I said, I'm here for the position. She's like, what? Like, totally like, you're in the wrong place. So I said, no, my name's John. This is the ad. My mom called. I'm trying like my mom called. She talked to this man, Larry Miller. She's like, okay, hold on. And so I'm just sitting there. And then he comes walking out. And he goes, Christ almighty, how old are you? And I told him.
I'm 17, sir.
Yeah. So he goes, come here. Just come here. And we don't even go in his office. He says, follow me. So we go out back. And it's a machinery company. New and used injection molding equipment. And things related to injection molding, okay? But some of the things I'm familiar with, I'm looking at, I see there's a motor there, there's a control, whatever, that's a compressor, whatever. And so he's like, young man, I talked to your mom, and I got to tell you, she thinks you're like the bee's knees, just so you know. But do you really know how to work on this? I go, what do you want me to do? He goes, okay, come with me. And we walk over, and I didn't know what it was at the time, but it was a desiccant dryer. It's this machine that compressed air flows through it, and it dehydrates it.
Okay.
So it doesn't mess up the equipment and the processes it's used for. The air has to be controlled and dried, not a lot of moisture in it, stuff like that. So I'm standing there, and I'm just looking at it. It's just a bunch of metal and nuts and bolts. There's nothing scaring me yet. I'm just looking at it. He says, look, this is a used piece of equipment. I need this disassembled. I need it painted. I need to make sure the motors are turning the right direction. I need you to hook it up and test it. Like, make sure everything's running.
Functional, sure.
But, no, I know you don't know what it is. I said, no, I don't. He goes, but I can show you some stuff, and if you can do this, you got the job. But I really have my doubts. I said, I'm pretty sure I can make this go. He says, tell you what, you can start this weekend. What's the earliest you can get here? I said, I'll come here at 5, 6 in the morning. He says, oh, no. Like, can you get here by 8 or so? I thought, yeah.
Sure.
Shit, I can do that easy, you know? So I got there. He was there. He always wore a shirt and a tie, no matter how dirty shit was. It was hilarious. And he would, like, throw his tie over his shoulder and roll up his sleeves. He said, all right. Listen to me. And I'd say, okay, and I would do it. He'd come back out. He's like, oh, all right. Well, can you use can you paint? I'm like, yeah, I can paint. And I got the paint, mixed a little bit thinner with it because it's a little bit thick, spray the shit out of this John Deere green, all over the goddamn thing. And glue gaskets back on and put all the covers back on. And, it has an arrow for rotation and 3-phase motors. You can, bump them and see which way to switch direct. I knew all that already from doing electrical work. So I did it. There was no faking it till I made it. I actually just followed his instructions, listened to what he said. Right. I never said, I know. Oh, yeah. Oh, no, I would listen to what he told me. I wouldn't say a word, Focused in it. Everything he said, took it all in. Yeah, because... It's a good trait to have. No, I'm just saying, there was a lot of times, training guys over the years, I've trained a lot of men and worked with a lot of people. And one of my big pet peeves is when somebody goes, I know. That's such a defensive bullshit deal. Yeah. And I'm telling you, that's a big mistake. When somebody's trying to give you something, you better be present. Mm-hmm. It doesn't mean you have to interact by voicing some stupid comment or reaction. Just listen, and then just you got to communicate. But I'm just saying, the bravado is not necessary. Mm-hmm. So anyway, Larry gave me so much, and I stayed there till I graduated from high school. He came to my graduation. Wow. He gave me $100. Mom and Dad gave me a Norelco razor. We went to Taco Bell. I mean, it was
fine dining. You got the whole wheel.
It was awesome. Larry knew that he wasn't part of the family, but he came up, he gave me the envelope and wrote something. I can't remember what it was. That was like, congratulations, very proud of you. And it's $100.
It's a lot of money.
That was like $1,000 back then. I was like, holy shit, that's $100. And I don't have to save it. It's all at one time. I get this $100. Right. And
because what was your hourly wage back then?
$1.85.
So $100 was serious coin.
$1.85 or was it more than that by then? No, it was more than. That was at the hardware store. I always remember the hardware store, but about $1.85. But it was a couple bucks, $2, $3.
$100 was a ton of money.
So, because my rent, I lived in a little apartment on Otis and Tenaya in Southgate, and my rent was $165 a month. $165. And I negotiated that with the two ladies that owned the place. Because I think they wanted like $185. I said, look, I only make this much. And if I do that, I won't have enough money to pay the... Yeah. And I was there plenty of times. I was so skinny back then. It's hilarious. But went through... But Larry, before he left the campus, because the ceremony was there at Southgate High, he said, hey, you can stay on. You go full-time if you want, like full-time. I'm like, oh, thank you. And I was so happy. That was like the biggest part of the whole day for me. I was like, oh my God, I have a real job.
Full-time job.
Full-time job, instantly. So I'm thinking, I'm just going to make some good money, forget about school. Nope. Larry sat me down. I went back like my first day, like on a Monday, and he's like, all right, you can do your 40 hours a week, but you're going to go to school at night. And I'm like, oh, yeah, no, okay, yeah, but I can do this. I can do this job. He's like, no, you're not listening to me. My good friend, Professor Giannone, and that's what you're going to call him, he is the welding and metallurgy professor at Cerritos College in Cerritos. He goes, I already called him. You're going to go to school. You're going to drive your ass over to Cerritos, and he's going to tell you which classes to take. Go meet him, and you do what you got to do. But listen to what he says, and just go over and sign up for everything. I'll pay for it. So here I am, fresh out of high school. I can kind of weld. Now, I could weld. I could gas weld and stuff,
Right.
and paint and do electrical stuff. But he says, no, you need to understand what you're doing.
Right.
I don't care that you can do it. I want you to understand.
The purpose and the reason for, yeah.
So I'm 18. I'm studying metallurgy, mechanical drawing, welding from day one. This stuff I already thought I knew. I had to start over again, unlearn some bad habits. I took it very seriously. Studied all the welding disciplines, learned about metal, how it's made, how it's affected by heat, cold, interaction with other metals. I learned a lot, and I was young. And when you're young, personally, I felt like I was so powerful then because things just kind of happen. I would work and just do stuff so quick and just effortlessly, you know? And so I did that, and at the same time, I took other classes because I thought, well, maybe I can get a degree.
Sure.
I got an AA, which I never did. But I studied cinematography. I studied psychology and sociology and took all these other classes, and it was awesome. I really, really enjoyed myself. And
At this time, do you still have a car bug?
oh yeah,
going?
oh yeah, very much so. And I had my jalopy little Volkswagens and stuff. I lost the Alpha. It's a long story. The Camaro I got later on after the debacle with the. Anyways, I kept moving forward with cars, but at the same time, I had Larry Miller give me like a very wide berth, so like to learn and achieve. Like his thing was be on time, you know, don't fuck around. So and I honored that. I mean, I was never late. And I would work as long as he would let me work. And when I wanted to work on cars, he would let me work on my car there.
At the shop. Yeah.
So I started welding my car back, because the pans were all worn out. And I had access to equipment. I could do whatever I wanted. Oh, shit, I want to make this part. So I started doing stuff like that. Not even realizing that could be a vocation later on.
Right.
For me, that was like, this is a hobby. Your job is what you do to make a living. This is a hobby. Because that had been drilled into my head early on. Like, don't you have something to do? Those stupid cars, So I kept on learning and growing in that field. And I just started to make good money. And I had an opportunity to buy a Camaro, the 68 Camaro. And that was a machine, much heavier, not as nimble. But then, V8s. These flat fours are fun, but this V8, And the Alpha motors, I got to tell you, the little Alpha motors are badass. They're pretty robust inside. But the V8s, oh my God, a small block Chevy, when I started playing with those.
Beast.
Well, shit, on a good day with the little Volkswagens and the Alpha, 120 horsepower. Wow, man, it's incredible, right? The first time you get in a small block that makes 450, 500 horsepower, which is nothing now. I mean,
Right.
I mean, I'm not going to say that. It's not nothing, but with computers and stuff, you can really dial stuff in
Right.
and keep detonation and heat under control. But I fell in love with the Chevy small block. That's an incredible little beast. And you can do, anyway, so I got into that and street racing, having fun with that. But I stayed in the trades. Larry Miller, one day he came to me and he says, you can't work here anymore.
Why?
Because he said, I've outgrown the shop. I thought I had it made. I'm making enough money. I'm paying my bills. I can just go out and buy whatever pistons I want and build. I was, but I didn't have a wife. I didn't have kids.
How old are you at this point?
Probably by then I was like 19.
Okay, so it's been 2
20.
years.
I was probably
2 3 years.
Yeah, and so.
And he just wanted you to move on and get broader.
Yeah, he said that he goes, John, there's a whole world out there. And he goes, you're really good at this. He goes, you're a natural. And he goes, I'll find another one of you. It might not be you, it might not be your age, but I'll find another guy. But you can make a lot of money. He told me that. You can make a lot of money. And
does he direct you in a direction, or does he just cut you loose?
Yeah, he got me a job at a place called, what was it called? Philam, Filipino American Plastics, which was a company that bought equipment from us. Because in a very short period, like within a year and a half, 2 years, I was doing service calls. So he would like go over to this plant. They said that the extruder's messed up, and just go over there and fix it. So, I'd go over there, and sometimes I'd be in the wee hours of the morning, like on a third shift. The plant would shut down.
Right.
And I'd cruise over there with my tools, and I'd just fix shit. And he'd get so tickled. And the people in the plant, I'd show up, and they're like, I look at it now, like I think back, like what were they thinking? Because this little snotty kid just coming in is going to work on this machine. And I would fix the machine and go home. And so I worked at Filipino American Plastics, and then I had my first encounter with a super wealthy person that treated me really poorly. Like I'd never been not rewarded for doing the right thing. I felt so, not like prideful, but I'd never encountered.
What was the job?
The factory I was working for, one of the things we made were cassettes for Columbia Music.
Okay.
We made cassettes, and cassettes are made out of plastic with the magnetic tape inside.
Right.
And we got this bitchin' state-of-the-art cassette making machine. I mean, everything you need to make a cassette to record music, little plastic cassette.
Right.
There was all this stuff on the outside, and it all filtered into this machine, and out the other side came cassettes. Okay? And then those cassettes would go to wherever they put the music on and print like Columbia Records.
Right.
And they would say,
Label it.
ELO,
right.
Blah, blah, blah. And then, they put it in a little jacket. Excuse me, it was your idea to go to Wahoo's, just saying. So it was really cool. I was super excited about it. Well, one of the other things Larry did for me was not only did I go to Cerritos to study welding, metallurgy, and industrial arts and such, he also sent me to Clippard Pneumatic, Paul Monroe Hydraulics Academy. I went to Gould Moldicon School. I went to Ellen Bradley School. I'm young and I'm stupid. I don't realize that this is supposed to be maybe take years and years to do. I'm just going to these classes, and I had nothing else to do.
That was it. This was your life.
I didn't have the kind of girlfriends that were like steady. I had fallen in love with a couple of girls, but they were like really mean to me and didn't understand me at all. It's just funny because
sure.
If you have a needy person in your life, male, female, lover, not a lover, whatever, just friends, they will drag you down so hard if you let them.
Yep.
So you got to, and earlier I was telling, I try to identify people and try not to get sucked into their rabbit hole if it's possible. But I also very helpful to people.
Right.
But the point I was going to make is that by the time I was 23, I had a really incredible skill set. And I took a break for a while, and I worked full-time at the hardware store that I used to work at.
What drew you back there?
Because I wanted to focus more on learning a few things.
Okay.
So I took a little break. Not long, like maybe 3 semesters. And then I got headhunted out of the hardware store. But there was a gentleman named Glenn Sawyer who used to come to the hardware store to buy stuff for the factory that he was a manager of. And that was Manchester Tank and Equipment. They make pressure vessels, air tanks, propane tanks. And one day he came in and he said, "Hey, why are you working here?" I said, "Oh, no, I'm going to school." And he goes, "You know what? Hey, how much you making here right now?" And I told him I was making. He says, "Oh, my God." He says, "Look, why don't you come work for me? Just give these guys 2-week notice. Be nice to them. But I could really use you." Because he would come in and he would find me. And he's like, "Hey, I need 230-amp 2-pole breakers. I need 60 feet of, 3/4 inch EMT. I need some 10 gauge THSN in 3 colors. I don't care which colors, blah, blah. And I knew what he was talking about, you know? And I didn't mess around. I just, okay, I know that. And I didn't have to write it down or nothing. And so he was like, I love this kid, right? So he hires me for an absurd amount of money. I mean, I was blown away. I forgot what it was, but it was like $9 an hour or something.
More than you were ever making.
Oh my God. I was like, holy shit. All right, I'll do that. And he was religious. We started at 6 o'clock in the morning. We had our breaks, and at like 3 o'clock, we're gone. No overtime. We have work assignments, get the work done, go home. Religious about it. And so I did it. And then he's like, he kept saying, what else can you do? What else? Can you do this? And all of a sudden, all the pieces kind of came together, and I started building equipment from scratch. He would say, hey, I got to weld this placard on the side of a tank. Can you make a machine that would do that automatically? I'm like, I think so. Yeah, that shouldn't be a big deal. And so with the things that I knew and little concepts that I understood, I would make a drawing of the frame, and I knew what the tank looked like, so I had to have the conveyor to bring it in, and then a stop, and I would just figure it out. And I'd put a motor here and a gearbox, and a DC drive and a little programmable controller. Most of the time, I would use sequential logic, and I would just build these machines, and I did that for 5 years, and I grew and grew and grew, and then I got headhunted out of there.
Don't you find it interesting that you grew up for a period of time with little or no men in your life, and then all of a sudden these men like Tony at the shop, and then another guy and another guy are putting you on the right path or giving you opportunities that most kids don't get?
Yeah, so if you get stuck feeling bad about who your dad or your mom is, or you've been mistreated, that's a choice. I think what happened was I had interests in things I wanted to know, and I think I was genuine and receptive, and
right.
So I got back what I gave.
Yeah, because these guys gave you unbelievable opportunities.
Absolutely. Yeah, because
from fixing a carburetor
yep.
to taking you on at a hardware store, and then taking you on and telling you, no, you're going to go to school after you graduate. I mean, some guy could have just said, I'm going to keep him around at $2 an hour.
Yep.
But the guy was giving you wings to grow and go.
Yes. And the hardware store owner was Bob Ursland. The guy was a saint. I can never thank him enough. He was always there for me. And the only reason I don't have relationships with any of these guys is because they left the planet. All the guys that are still around, I still have contact with them. It's part of it is not. I think if you just take, and you don't really appreciate it, that's kind of crappy.
Right.
I'm very, very thankful for the time people spent with me, and I always gave back. I tried to give back more when I could, but what was so funny is that I also was always like, whenever somebody would come in and say, hey, you want to work for me? I would go to my boss and say, hey, like when I told Bob Ursland, I said, hey, Glenn Sawyer from Manchester Tank, he wants me to go work for him. He goes, well, how much is he going to pay you? And I said, well, he goes, John, take the job. So I have to admit that in my personal dealings, because my career transcended into the corporate world, like in a big way, and I ended up like the longest tenure I had was 11 years with Hahn Office Furniture. So I went from Manchester Tank to Hahn Office Furniture in 1988, and I was only, I wasn't that old. I mean, I was like 25.
What were you doing at an office furniture place?
So Hahn Office Furniture manufactured office furniture.
Okay.
So they had all the same equipment, almost everything you'd use to build a car, but they built furniture. File cabinets, chairs, tables,
So that metal shop, plastics, wood, whatever.
Yep,
They had it all.
everything. So, and I knew how to do it all. Like there wasn't anything in that place that I couldn't take care of.
There wasn't any machinery you hadn't put your hands on.
Or the conceptually, like it was like because the things you do to make things happen are all based from certain disciplines.
Right.
The physics required to make this melt together, and it's all related. So I went in there very young, and they hired me as a journeyman electrician, which I could do with one hand behind my back. That was like gravy. And I started on second shift, and mind you, this is 1988, and I'm getting paid like $27.50 an hour in 88.
You're living the dream.
Oh, I was killing it. I had my little Porsche already.
So let's go to that then. What makes you decide at some point, I fall in love with that car?
Well, so my cousin Mike had Porsches, like I told you,
and that was out of your price range.
Way out of my price range.
It was never thought.
Yep, and so my winter formal, I asked him if I could borrow his 912. He had a sand beige 66 912 and a 69 911S, a tangerine 911S, and he says, "Well, I'll let you take 12. You can't take the S." And he was smart. So I picked up the car, I cleaned the daylights out of it, and I went and picked up my date. I couldn't wait to take her ass home so I could go drive the car. Seriously. I couldn't wait. I dumped her ass off at her house in her frilly dress, and I drove that car till the sun came up. I drove up the 710, got into Long Beach, ended up driving up probably almost all the way to Laguna, and then came back the other way, and the sun was starting to come up, and that was the most rewarding, one of the most, I guess it would have been nice to, maybe go take her to some place and have a good time. But
right.
I really wanted to just be in that car. It was amazing, and it was a really fun thing, and I.
And did that set love in motion?
Oh, that the love was there. That solidified it. I mean,
You loved it from a distance, but now you're in it.
That's right.
You're in this beautiful machine.
Yep. And
it's love.
He had let me putt around a couple times, but this was like, it's just me in the car.
But now you're driving.
This is it.
Right.
This is it. There's nobody telling me what to do. And I've been driving air-cooled cars for a long time, so I know how they work. And it was markedly better than any modified Volkswagen I'd ever built. Because I'd built a few cars on and off. There's holes in the story here, but I'd had almost every kind of Volkswagen, and I'd buy stuff and kind of dump it,
right?
Make a few bucks here and there. But I knew I wanted a Porsche really, really, really bad, and I had been involved. I had an accident. I was T-boned in my Camaro.
Okay.
And I had good insurance, and I ended up with this big insurance check. I'm like, wow, that's a pretty big chunk of money. So I'm like, well, shit, I'm gonna buy a Porsche car. I'm gonna go look. And then I found a Corvette. So I went and looked at this Corvette in Palos Verdes, and it's a beautiful Corvette. It was in primer, but it was all there, and this dude was in the middle of a divorce, and he says, I just need to dump this car. So I bought the Corvette. Small block Chevy, independent suspension. I'm like, well, shit, this is like both worlds combined.
The small block Chevy got you again.
Yep. So I'm like, you know what? I'll just buy this. This is fun.
But you had your mind on that Porsche.
Yeah.
Why not pull the trigger?
Well, it's just funny. I'm a car guy. And I was just weighing options and how much money I had. And I'm like, well, shit, I get this Corvette. It's not painted, so it's really affordable. I'll paint it and do a few mods. I have this bitchin', lightweight Chevy with independent suspension and disc brakes. I'm like, this would be badass, right? I gave the guy a down payment. And I told him I'll come back in the weekend. I'll come get this car. He calls me A couple days later, he says, hey, little problem, no big deal. I took the car out and I broke a stub axle. I don't know what happened. I go, you don't know what happened? You probably do burnouts and clutch drops. I said, I don't want the car. Dude, he's like, dude, it's only like $200. I said, listen to me. I'm coming back. I want my money back. And he's like, oh, all right. So I drove to PV, and he gave me my money back. And I had a chunk of money, and I think I had like $6,600 cash. And so Brenda, who's, my wife.
Girlfriend at the time?
Let's see, when was this? Yeah, probably, yeah.
Okay.
So she followed me to Northridge in her little squareback. We drove in her squareback.
Right.
And we get to this consignment lot in Northridge because I went to look at a 911. And I get there, and the guy shows up because it was funny. It was a above ground trailer. You have little steps going up, right, and a little balcony, and then you walk into the thing, and there's a guy there, with a desk, and if there's a car you like, he calls the owner, and they come down to this consignment lot on the corner where they sell pumpkins and Christmas trees,
Right.
And so I look at the guy comes, and I look at can you start it up? And he starts it up, and it's like, tick, 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 tick. I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, there's something wrong with that motor. Oh, it runs good. I'm like, no, it might run good, but that's not right. That's not a good sound. He's like, oh, it's probably just the valves or something like. I said, nah, I'm going to pass. You don't want to drive it? I said, no. In fact, I'm kind of bummed out. We drove, because mind you, we're in Southgate. Northridge is a long ass drive. So, so then I'm looking around, and there's a Jag. Beautiful 12-cylinder Jag. And I saw that. I'm like, oh, shit, let's go look at that. So the old geezer who owned that car comes down, and I start looking at it, and Brenda is, God bless her, she saved me so many times this way. She's like, do you really want that? That car looks funny. She will, call cars I think are beautiful. She'll, call them something like a potato bug.
Right.
Or that looks like that's weird. It's like some kind of caterpillar looking thing. I'm like, all right, Brenda, all right. So then we're getting ready to leave. And I didn't see it the whole time, but there's just a little white 912 off to the side. I'm like, well, let's go look at that. So we go look at it. I'm looking at it. I'm like, well, it looks pretty good. So anyways, long story short, they call the owner, and he shows up. Guy drives up in a 930
what a
turbo.
Weird process. You call people to come and bring keys to.
Yeah. So this guy comes up in this beautiful white 930 turbo. He's got Jimmy Connor tennis clothes on, baby blue, a white over sweater. He's got the sweat bands on his wrists and on his head. He's like, this super handsome Adonis-looking dude jumps out.
Did Brenda like his car?
She didn't give rat's ass. She just wanted to go home probably by this time.
She just buy the car and get the hell out.
Buy a goddamn car, let's get out of here. So we, I didn't know what Tourette syndrome was.
Oh.
I had no idea. Never been exposed to it, never heard of it, nothing, right? My own little corner of the world. The gentleman who owned the car has Tourette's. And I guess one of the things that happens when they're nervous, it comes out. And one of the most nervous things ever is meeting someone for the first time.
Sure.
And maybe selling a car you like, whatever. So he starts doing this crazy stuff, like, and I'm like, and I look at Brenda, and he's like, I'm so sorry. He goes, hold, and I'm like, and anyways, he finally explains. He goes, I have this syndrome. Just let me calm down. And he finally calms down. So that was like, and I'm like, what the hell's going on here? So,
wow.
Ends up being a super cool dude. Taught me something, another thing to know about.
Mm-hmm.
And we've communicated over the years on and off. Guy ends up being like a world famous art director, like super famous. Like it's worked with some big people and big things. He's a very well accomplished guy. He's still around. He lives in doesn't live in California anymore. He lived in Sylmar at the time. But it's just funny. So we make a deal on the car, and he's like, kid, how much money do you have? And I said, I got $6,600. He goes, well, I got to get $6,000 for this car. So he kind of played me, and I actually told him how much money I had. Didn't even negotiate, right? And $6,000 for a 68 912 back then was a lot of money.
You didn't do any research? No idea?
I've always been, it's funny, like now I would do that.
Right.
But back then, I was totally a creature of, I want that.
You point at it, I want it, I buy it.
I want that. And if I have the money, I just spend it.
What would the value have been for that car?
It was probably closer to a $4,500 car.
Okay.
I paid 911 money for the 912, but I'll tell you what I got. I got a friendship with the owner. You know, he knows who I am still, and I know him. And if we were to talk, we'd probably have a good conversation. But what I really, really got was a really super cool car that had documentation,
okay,
matching numbers, original toolkit, the seat belts, the window sticker, the original keys, everything. And that gentleman was the second owner. I'm the third owner. But it was a really cool car. And it was the seed that started everything that I have today. Absolutely, because I dove into that car. It needed to be fixed. It needed some things. But that car ended up becoming the test bed for all my wacky ideas. I pushed that car to its limits. I ended up racing the car with POC for a decade. I broke everything you could break at speed, trying to go as fast as that car would go. And I had so much seat time in the car, which is one of the best weapons you can have, no matter what power your car has or what it's capable of. If you have a lot of seat time in it, you know what it's going to do, and it gives you so much.
What it can't do?
What it can and can't do.
Yeah, that's key, right?
Oh, yeah. If you
it handles this way
yep.
when it's cold and when it's hot.
Yep.
And when, yeah.
And
tell me this. I'm naive on this. Tell me this. What is the difference between a 911 and a 912?
So for the year model, they both existed side by side. Mm-hmm. No difference except for the engine.
Size, that's it, right?
Well, you have a 4-cylinder versus a 6-cylinder.
Okay,
so the 4-cylinder that lived in a 912 is the same engine that was in the 356 SC.
Okay.
Towards the end of that era. There was a moment in time in 1965 when you could go to a lot and there was, in Europe in any case, you could have a 356, a 912, and a 911 all sitting 3 wide at the dealer. The 912 didn't come to the United States until 65, 66. But the main difference is the engine.
That's it.
Yeah. And then there's different trim levels and options. But, you know, some people, whoever these people are, because I never got to meet them, but it's so fun to get your hands on a 912 and get the Cardex and see that some doctor or some serviceman in Germany said, I want a 912, not 911, because they understood that motor out of the 356, but they wanted all this new stuff. The better looking car, I'm not going to say better looking,
right?
But this uniquely different car, and the textures and the feel, just a different car with the same heart, some better handling characteristics, and they're cool. I love them,
right?
So
because when we did that video piece with you, the way you talked about that 912 was like the way you talk about a Lover.
Sure.
I mean, the way you talk about it, how it handles and its speed and everything. I mean, is there such a physical difference when you drive 11 to a 12 that you just know how 12s handle? Like, that's just the better, you prefer that?
So on a short course, a really tight, like sea of cones, parking lot exhibition, a 912 is going to be better than a 911. The 911 has more torque and higher top speed for the most part. And, you know, when you're driving a car, every car has different physics at play because of the way they're put together. But a 911, a 912, a Volkswagen Beetle, all those cars that have that engine in the back, they're really unique and fun to drive because you can set your angle by letting off the gas a little bit, or maybe even applying brake at the right time. And you can get the back of that car to just come around so nice, and then get on the gas and shoot at exactly where you want to go, and it's fun. A 912 allows you to have more inertia than a 911 and still be on the edge of grip, so you can really just hammer along.
Because you were talking about when we did that driving that car, you're like, oh, if we had this suspension with these tires at this inflation, oh, this would be a great drive. Mm-hmm. So like you're taking all those things into account per this road.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of little things you do from experience. You know, you if you really want to get the most, okay, it's like you're like, I used my 912 for everything for a long, long time. My wedding day, it was my car. I brought my kids home from the hospital in that car. I won driving championships in that car.
You still have that car?
I still have that car.
Now, why did you never say at any point in your life, I'm going to get rid of this one and get that one?
Because that car is part of me. As I know it's an inanimate object, and I know I won't be here forever. The car potentially will be along, hopefully longer than me, and maybe who knows how long. But the car,
because it wasn't your first car.
No.
But it was your first Porsche.
It was like all the other cars were like I was dating. And maybe I had some puppy love here and there, but I fell in love with that car. I fell in love with that car. It did everything I wanted to do. And once I got it sorted, it just would do it without failure.
Right.
I ran a lot of cars to failure and a lot of different things to failure. I just really liked that combination.
So what drives you then with this, and I don't know how far we jump along in time, but okay, so you're now 912, got your car, and you're a happy camper.
Yeah.
Where do you decide to like, I'm going to take this into a career?
So that's funny. I still considered it a hobby. So I ended up, I was racing in the mid-'80s. I totally dedicated.
Weekends at Willow Springs or wherever you could?
Yeah. And I would, at first I drove my car there. I'd take some air out of the tires and go out and beat the living daylights out of my car.
And then drive it home.
And then drive home. And I met a guy.
Everybody else had it on flatbeds, and you're driving
trailers and stuff.
Yeah.
And I met Dwayne Spencer there. He was one of my greatest mentors of all time. Great Porsche guru. God bless his soul. But I he would say, "You drove here?" I remember when I first met him, he goes, "You drove here? Where do you live?" I said, "I live in Downey." He's like, "Oh my God." He says, "You blow that thing up. It's a long walk." I'm like, "I know, but it won't blow up." He goes, "Oh no, it's going to blow up." And he was right. But, I will say this. By the time I got to the place where it did blow up, I had a very ingenious solution. I used to flat tow my car towards the end.
Which is?
Well, I modified my car. It's not there anymore, but I cut slots in my front bumper, and I put a sandwich plate, and I put a tow bar onto the front of my car when I'd go to the track. And I had a piece of shit truck, and I put the race tires and wheels in the back and a jack and some tools because I was really pushing the limits. And I would pull up to the pits, pull in, pull 2 pins. It would fall to the ground. And I would start my car and warm it up and go right out, I would,
change the tires,
change the wheels over real quick. And I was always like right on the track, like just ready to go, and no trailer in the way. So I could just work, and I had way more room in the pits. All my stuff was in the truck. And Brenda would make sandwiches, and we would just have a good time. And I really liked that, It was just simplicity. Some people were out of their minds. They had like giant trailers and assistants and mechanics. And
what did she think of this at the time?
Brenda?
Yeah, did she think it was just a hobby and it would fade after a couple of years? Or?
Brenda is the best companion in the world because we absolutely enjoy each other's company, but we don't have to be on top of whatever the other person's doing. So if we're doing the same thing, like a big part of our courtship was fishing, which she's very good at. The gods favor her when that's the situation. But she is awesome because she can just read a book. I mean, there's like cars going by at insane speeds, very loud.
Smells like gas.
Yeah,
and she could just flip through a book.
She's just reading a magazine or reading a book. And then later on when we had kids, we would put the playpen in the pits. The kids have their toys, you know, and she's making sandwiches for the whole frickin' place. and we're just hanging out. And the kids, same thing. The kids, they could give a crap that a turbo just went by at 130 miles an hour and, you know, backfiring and all this shit. They don't care. The kids are just, that's where they were at.
Right.
And, but Brenda is just super supportive. She's always been super supportive of whatever crazy thing I might want to do.
And then at some point you decide this hobby's going to be more?
Yeah, so I had been doing work since the mid-'80s on other people's cars at the house. And then it got out of control, so then I had a little shop on the side. But that was not a business. It was like a clandestine operation, and I made a lot of cash money out of that.
Just fixing cars?
Just fixing cars, mostly building engines. That was my favorite thing to do.
Okay.
And so on the other side, I have my...
And you do that on weekends or nights?
At night and on the weekends, yeah, because my job was a 40, 45-hour-a-week job, managing systems and operations for... towards the end, the last job I had was Curtis Wright.
Okay.
As a facilities engineer. And so I'm doing my thing, and I'm making pretty good dough on the side. And I'll share this because I've experienced it 3 times, and it finally burned me out. And I think we may have talked about this before. There was a great generation that we stand on the shoulders of, and they fought to make this country possible, okay? There is evil in the world, and it pops up once in a while. And our grandfathers went over to Europe and these little islands out in the Pacific and gave everything so we can sit here and have this talk, okay? And I'm very thankful for that. And some people, after World War II, were given a choice. Thank you for making these Jeep parts. Thank you for making these guns. You can keep all this equipment. We're done. The contract's over. Thank you very much. Some dudes sold off all the equipment, and some dudes, very few I think, actually said, hey, let's do this. And one of them was a guy named Maxwell Stanley, and he was the founder of Hahn Office Furniture that I worked for. And I'm glad I got to actually meet the man, okay? And if his grandson's listening, I'm sorry. But this bugs me a lot because I experienced this 3 times. A family-owned business. The owner of that business makes a good living. And they're good people. Takes care of his employees. Shares in the profit. And it is a really symbiotic relationship that becomes productive and is cool. And that's America to me.
Right.
Because it helped get me here, right? I watched this happen 3 times where the grandsons of our best generation were afforded every opportunity to excel and propelled by great men like that man I described that built that company. They got their MBA, and what did they do? What can we do to make the quick dollar and move on to the next thing? So they take a company like Hahn Company and do an IPO. It has to answer to people that have no clue what we do, don't care. They just want that return on investment. The company didn't need any investment. The investment was from the man that owned that place and the people that went to work every day. They both invested. They both reaped benefit. I watched that company get destroyed. It's still around, but it's a shell of its former self.
That's a shame.
And then I watched that happen with other places I worked. And then by the time the end of my tenure, I'm working for this pretty globally known entity. And I really thought I gave my all at all of these jobs. But I just saw this repetitive, like, squeeze. And I watched I know what I made doing what I did early in my career as a skilled member. And I watched the amount they paid people that did what I did 10 years before, less money for the same job. And I'm like, why is that happening? Why this imbalance? Why is that dude who's so good at doing what he does worth less money 10 years later?
Right.
The math didn't add up to me. And then I became, I had a supervisory role. And I started to get just really frustrated that they weren't like, hey, what can we do to make this better? It was always, what can we do to make more money and spend less to get, which I guess that's cool and it makes sense. It's capitalism and it's a form of capitalism. But I just started to get really burned out because even if I was making a shitload of money up in management, it bothered me that people were like really busting ass and dedicated to the task. But the quality of life just seemed to be going down every 10 years. Like I felt like I grew up in paradise, even with all that other crap going on.
Right.
I felt like, wow, this is a great situation. You get in what you get out what you put in. The harder I push, the better it is. I create stuff and everybody's happy. And it just seemed like a really weird environment after a while. And then I was up for a promotion. I was going to get this missile division in Santa Ana. And the guy who was running it at the time, he told me, he said, oh, John, I put in the word. And I'm like, great, I'm going to become a GM. And I'm only 40-something. And this is going to rock. This is all I got to do now. And I can do my Porsche stuff on the side.
Right.
And the day comes, the announcement. We're all sitting around this big wooden table. The execs from New Jersey come out. We're all sitting around the table. And the guy that I report to, all right, I'd like to make the announcement. And he does not point at me. Points across the table at somebody that's completely not the guy for the job. I'm not quite sure what the hell's going on. And what it boiled down to is he didn't want me to have a division. He wanted me to keep doing what I was doing, which wasn't necessarily the best thing for the company. I mean, give somebody else a chance, and let me get some accolades and finish out my tenure, put in another 20 years and retire and everything's good.
Right.
So when that happened, I literally had a nervous breakdown right there at the table. I stood up at the table and I looked at him and I said, are you serious? He's like, John. I said, no, this is really happening. He's like, John, let's table this. I'm like, nope. And I got up and I left the room. I left the conference room. I went upstairs. I took down all my certificates and placards, picture of Brendan and the kids, threw this box of shit in my car, and I went home.
That's it.
That was it. I left my shop keys on my desk, and that was it. And I got my cell phone's blown up, and I finally answer it, and it's Al, and he's, John, where are you? I said, I'm sorry. That's none of your business. I don't work for you anymore. And I hung up. And I got a check the severance check thing, like whatever it was. And Brenda came home and she's like, what are you doing home?
Supposed to be at work.
They called me because the accounting department called and said, hey, are you really quitting? I'm like, yep. And they told me what was going on. So that's why I brought this up. This is all coming back to me now. But I was totally calm about it. And Brenda's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I quit. She's like, you did what? And I said, I quit. I said, I got thrown under the bus in a weird way, and I'm not happy. And I'm just tired. This is like the last time I'm going to put up with this corporate,
structure, the way it was.
The best doesn't rise to the top all the time. I'm not saying I'm the best, but I did what I needed to do, and I knew who the players were, and it just didn't make any sense to me.
Okay.
So, and I didn't want to be a pawn in somebody else's weird game. So I just said, that's it. I'm not doing it anymore. And Brenda says, what are you going to do? I said, I don't know. And so Brenda says, why don't you just open up a shop full time? Just make your shop your business.
And where was the shop originally? Or this little teeny shop?
That was in Southgate.
I don't want to say hobby shop, but the shop. Okay.
Yeah, Southgate, over off of Imperial and Garfield.
Okay.
By the railroad tracks. So
what do you do?
I did it.
You come up with a name? You come up with a logo? What do you do? What's your Monday like or whatever?
Well, so a buddy of mine I went to school with, Joe Lopez, he had become a graphic artist and designer. And he gave me a CD-ROM. And he says, here's 10 grand. I'm like, really? He goes, well, it's worth 10 grand. And it was all the logos that I use today, to this day. He did it all. He did Benton. When you see this, he did that. This B logo, he did that. There's another logo called Benton Built, which I still have some of those decals, and Benton Engineering. So he gave that to me as a gift that I still use to this day. And so my friends were there for me. They all thought I'd lost my mind.
I'm sure they probably did.
I made really good money. I had a bitchin' fishing boat and a dually and a trailer to go with that.
Because you were very corporate, and all of a sudden, people are thinking maybe you went through just a little midlife crisis.
Yep.
Like breaking down all of a sudden, your Michael Douglas moment. You're just like, I'm out of here.
Yep. But the same mindset that's like, I want that. I had an epiphany and this shift, and I'm like, I want that. As soon as it came out of her mouth, the first thing was I wanted out. Like, I'm not going to do this, and I got a few bucks in the bank, and I wasn't like super wealthy or nothing, but I had a 401k, and I had some different things, and I said, I can live without the boat, live without the truck. I don't need this, I don't need that, and I'm just going to focus on building engines and honing my other skills. And
did you think there was a market big enough for you to sustain maybe a year building engines?
Well, I did the math real fast in my head. The only thing keeping me from making more money doing engines is because I wasn't doing it all the time.
Okay. So the other 40 hours you were being held back if you could do it.
Yeah, and I have other responsibilities, wife and family and stuff like that. So I just always said, well, if I do this many motors, I'll make this much money. I help Brenda cover the nut, and we're good. And so that's what I did. And initially, it was just building engines, and it was just one after another. There was no, and see, part of that was that.
Now, how'd you get word of mouth out? Now that you need more motors.
Well, it's funny because it's funny how things just came together. About the same time, the 912 Registry had formed, which was an informal club that became more and more formal. So then I would host parties at my house.
Okay.
My little house, the only house I've ever owned.
Right.
1,000 square feet of heaven over in Downey. Brenda and I would host parties for 150 people. The street would be lined with cars.
Neighbors probably thought, "What the hell?"
Well, the neighbors would come over too. I mean, it was such a good time, and it seems like a million years ago, but it wasn't that long ago. And but because I had been racing a 912 in a world full of 911s, and I had a little reputation, and my car was fun. Like, there'd be a line of 912s, and you hear them start, and you hear mine start, and we go on these drives, and I would just like scream, and people were like, "Holy shit!" And they wanted that. And I apologize to anyone who felt the way I feel about young upcoming upstarts now. And what I mean by that is, God bless you. I wish you the best. But if you do this in your backyard for half the price of what it cost me to do it, I understand how that's, because I was doing incredible stuff for much less than a shop would charge because I didn't have the overhead.
Right.
So then, this is a funny thing, I'll tell you. When I went legit, I was confronted with the new equation. I've got $4,000 a month rent for the shop.
Is this La Habra shop?
Yep.
Okay.
Because I opened up the La Habra shop.
Now, why'd you pick La Habra?
Because a friend of mine wanted to go into business with me. And he lived over in Orange County in Brea.
Okay.
And he found this location. It was a pretty cool location. The price is right. And
yeah, it's a great little shop.
Yep. And I just wanted to, I mean, there's a bunch of stuff going on in the background here, but it would take forever to tell the story. Long and the short of it is I wanted to partner up. He's a buddy of mine. And we weren't 100% in sync.
And that happens a lot with partners.
Yeah, partners are for dancing, and you better have your shit together if you want to look good while you're dancing.
Someone's
together.
going to step on someone's toes and get jealous, and
so it was. Well, what ended up happening was that I'm thinking we're going to do Porsches and maybe some high end, but European stuff. Mm-hmm. And he wanted to do some more hot rod stuff, and I didn't want to do that really, not to a great extent, and. Like overnight, he had moved a bunch of hot rod stuff into the shop, and I had rented some equipment to do electrical work in the shop. And when I got there, it upset me. So we got in an argument.
And how early into this relationship in the shop are we talking?
Oh, very early.
First couple months?
Oh, first couple weeks.
Oh boy.
Which is good.
Okay.
So,
I guess if you're going to have issues, have it now.
Yeah. So we agreed to disagree, and he had put the money down to get the shop. So to keep him from getting his ass reamed, I just decided, even though it was an inconvenience, I'll make a run of it here, even though it's a fucking hour drive to get all the way here every day.
Right. You from Downey to La Habra.
And to this day, I've moved further away. Now I'm in Anaheim, and most of the employees live very close to that location. So I don't mind. In fact, I really enjoy using the commute to take care of business far away, because I can call people in Europe and parts suppliers in Europe and customers in Europe and use that hour as a power hour and make the drive not so painful because I'm getting something done.
Right.
That's how I ended up in La Habra, and it's been tough to maintain some relationships as you grow. Like a lot of people that used to come to me when I was in my backyard stopped coming.
Why?
Because they couldn't afford the shop rate. They literally would like, John, this is a lot of money. I'm like, this is the bill.
Right. You had to keep, you got overhead now and rentals and tools. And at that point, is it just you?
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I started bringing people on probably around 2007 or 8.
When did you go to La Habra? What year is that?
2005.
Okay.
Somewhere around there.
So for those first 3 years of business, what are you learning? Because now you're running a business. You're not running out of your garage. You're not running out of a hobby place out of Southgate. Now it's a full-fledged business.
Well, okay, so I learned, and my main thing was to try to be legit. Like I didn't want to
taxes.
I wanted to make sure I didn't get caught in a deal where the city or somebody thought I was trying to hustle them. Right. Because that'll put you out of business.
Oh, yeah, they'll come down on you.
Unless you got a shitload of money, you don't give a shit, and you're going to choke them with attorneys or whatever. That's not me. I didn't have the power. So I literally, almost ignorantly, I went to the city of La Habra. I said, what do I need to do? And they love that.
Sure.
They love that. So I just made sure I complied with whatever the rules were. I made sure I had my business license under control. I right away got with the Bureau of Automotive Repair.
Okay.
Which is no big deal. It's like $200 a year.
Right. But you're crossing T's and dotting I's.
I wanted to know. And I went to people that I knew that had shops and asked them, what am I supposed to do? And I just did it.
Who's handling billing?
I was doing everything.
And where'd you get that knowledge?
I asked questions, and I got copies of ROs from other shops that I knew of, and just put my name on it and stuff.
Okay.
And where I fell on my sword early on. There's an archaic system that's there to protect the customer. And the Bureau of Automotive Repairs and the law that they try to enforce is based in 50s law that was put in place to keep somebody from overcharging someone for an alternator. Okay. You know, like you go in and you say, my lights don't work and I got no power. So you bring the car in and you put an alternator in and they give you the bill and the bill's $50. And you're like, holy shit. We're talking about 1950.
Right.
The alternator's $8.95 and it took you 30 minutes to put it in and you charged me $50? Mm-hmm. Well, that's messed up. I agree. It's messed up. So the law regarding auto repair is so convoluted and retarded. I'm just over it. I have to give a teardown estimate. You know, it's just
still to this day.
To this day, you're supposed to give an estimate of repairs and then you have options after that. So you bring me a car and you say, it doesn't run. Well, fuck, it's a 50-year-old vintage sports car. I don't know who's been touching it. And you want me to give you an estimate. The car's in a box or boxes. What's the estimate? So early on, I tried to do that. I'm like, okay, it's impossible. I can't tell you what it's going to cost to put this car back together until the end. It's the truth, because I don't know what's hiding underneath the paint. I don't know what's hiding underneath those seats when I take them out. I don't know what's inside the motor until I take it apart. So early on, I tried to do auto repair and auto restoration, two different things.
Oh, yeah.
So if somebody comes in and, I've had to really change things up at my shop so many times to try to protect the shop. Because it's not just me now. I'm feeding 6 families. So, I really get frustrated with people. So now I have to be an educator to the client. Mm-hmm. I have to be very patient because it's too easy to get upset. And what that is just me being selfish and assuming everybody already knows and assuming that people understand what's going on. They don't. A doctor, a lawyer, a school teacher, an accountant, that's what they do all day, and they're good at it. That's great. But they don't know what it takes to put a motor together. They don't know that they're paying me for more than the repair. They're paying me for all the experience. Right. They're going to get a better outcome because I know the pitfalls. I know what's going to go wrong. Mm-hmm. So I'm here trying to do the best thing for them. That's why they came to me, hopefully, right? So I've had to put together a contract basis for work that's not repairs. So I can still give an estimate for repair, or a small job. Somebody comes in and says, I'd like to get a set of sports seats. I'm like, okay, well, here's the selection. Which ones do you want? I like that style. I'm like, okay, that style, those 2 seats with the brackets are $2,800, and it's 3 hours to put them in. There's your estimate. That's super easy. So that's on an RO, a document. Mm-hmm. We agree, they sign it. If anything else happens, I call them up, make a note of it. They say yes or no. But that's how that game plays out.
Right.
Early on, I was trying to do everything on an RO, which is almost impossible. An RO
can't be done.
It's just stupid because if you try to
why were you trying to do that?
Because I was naive and I thought it was just I could do the RO, get the signature, handshake, thank you very much, and just start working on the car. And I had a business line of credit. So, I do $40,000, $50,000 worth of work on a car, and then people come and they just pay me that money. So I'm carrying all that debt.
Right.
Okay? But I was so what happened, Matt, is that I had never had to deal with anyone that didn't just go with the flow. Before it was like cash, shake hands.
Right.
Now there's a bank account. There's taxes to be paid. there's no like people are like, hey, I'll pay you cash. I'm like, nope, just pay. I don't care how you pay me. It's going in the bank.
Right.
Because it wasn't. I had to be smart about it.
Sure.
I wanted to be above boards in all ways. So I had never encountered a shark. And when I did, I almost died. I had someone come into my shop, smile at me, and pat me on the back, and tell me what they wanted, and sign the RO, and did the work, and they're like, oh, I didn't authorize this work. I don't have to pay you anything. And I was blown away. Like, wow. Somebody can stand in front of you knowing that they got exactly what they wanted, but because the law says this, if you really want to go there,
mm-hmm.
they can get out of paying this bill. Because during the build, they're saying, oh, can you do this? Oh, and can you do this? So when it comes time to get paid, it's like, oh no, the RO says we're going to do that. Why did you do all this other work? Well, because you told me to. Well, I didn't authorize it. By law, you're supposed to have an addendum, and I have to sign it. And I'm like, and I was blown away by that. That a man could stand in front of me with exactly what he wanted, sitting right there, and almost put me out of business just to do that. I don't understand where that comes from. I didn't see it coming.
So that was quite a learning experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm still trapped in a funny place because I long for a world that's never going to exist.
In a way, we all are. We all kind of want like the perfect business, great clients. They come in, not that you tell them what to do, but they trust your experience. They understand that you know the craft. You're going to build the best car you possibly can for them without breaking the bank. And I'm sure you're going to have some clients that say to you, there is no dollar amount, just build me this. And then there's some with the giant wallet and they still nickel and dime you, or they don't trust you.
I don't think it's unique to me. It's just the way of the world.
Right.
Yeah, look, you and I have bought cars for our families.
Yes.
And we think we're like Joe Diamond. We're going to walk in and show these guys how it's done. I don't think anybody's ever walked into a dealership and gotten the smoking deal. They may believe that they got the smoking deal, but
right.
I mean, how much do they really pay for a car? Like you see the sticker. I don't think I've ever seen the actual
true
invoice.
Value of a Honda Accord.
Like only somebody that works at a dealership knows really what that
real number is.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. Maybe you could find out, but I guess the point I'm trying to make is that in a perfect world, it would be just like that.
Did you outgrow La Habra? Is that why they moved to Anaheim?
Yeah, we were outgrowing that area, and the way La Habra was set up, we had 2 adjoining units and then 2 storage units, and so the combined square footage.
But you were within walking distance of In-N-Out.
Oh, literally walking distance. Yes, it's right across the street.
Right across the street.
And you know how many times I ate there?
Once.
In 5 years, twice.
Oh! Were there too many high school kids from Sonora blocking your way?
No, what's funny is I'm a Jack in the Box guy.
Really? Well, that's right down the street, too.
Right down the street.
Right down La Palma. Boom, right there in Imperial.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, I never, I don't know, it's funny. I do eat In-N-Out once in a while, but to this day, I know it's disgusting, like just one step above dog food, but I'm a Ralston Purina fan.
And did they get busted for kangaroo meat at one point?
I don't think that's I think that's true. It's one of those urban legends. Is actually true, but that's discriminatory. Well,
why can't you eat a kangaroo?
Why can't you eat a kangaroo?
I've never had one, but if I had meat, and I might have had one, I wouldn't complain about it.
Yeah, if it tastes good and it, feels good, eat it.
So you've decided, okay, La Habra's I've outgrown La Habra. How do you find the spot in Anaheim? What are you looking for? Because that's what I've always find interesting. Like when you see shops, like what's a shop looking for? Where do you decide what's the pros and cons to a shop? Is it location or what?
Well, there's a big hole in the story because there's been a lot of situations that are uncomfortable dealing with people.
In business, yes.
And so I had a stint between 2000 and 2005. Let me think about this. Yeah, somewhere in there. I got involved in other stuff.
Okay.
And I got involved in Chrysler vehicles.
You say that like you were with the mafia.
That's what it felt like.
Because you used the term got involved.
Yes. So
if you would have said cartel, you might have smiled before you said.
Well, we worked on a few cars for people that were absolutely cartel people, and I.
They've got money too.
No, I'm not discriminatory about that, but it gets weird. I mean, today what I do, I would never let some of those shenanigans go down because
you're wiser.
Well, yeah, because when I got involved with this. Okay, I bought my first Mopar product. It was the first new vehicle I ever owned for me. All the old new vehicles we ever had were for Brenda and the kids. So
minivans, whatever they were.
I always had used stuff. Mm-hmm. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
I had nice used stuff, but I had used stuff and, do what I have to do, maybe fix it a little bit. But my first brand new vehicle was a 2000 Dodge Magnum RT. Was it a Magnum? No, it was an RT with a Magnum engine. So it was an RT truck.
Okay.
And so it had this 4.7 liter Magnum V8 in a mid-sized truck chassis. And I thought it was the most fabulous thing. I read about it. I saw it at the auto show. And then I did a test drive in one, a 99.
Okay.
Which ironically got recalled for some reason. I can't remember what it was. But I ordered what I wanted, and it was a 2000 model in this electric blue pearl and bitchin' wheels, just out of the box, just a fun little vehicle. But it wasn't a Chevy. A Chevy, back in the day, even in 2000, had a great aftermarket just waiting for you because Chevy and Ford shared with SEMA at a very high level. And Mopar, Chrysler, did things their own way. And I don't think they did a whole lot of sharing because at that time, Mopar Performance, I don't think they even existed yet. But I had this V8 powered truck and I couldn't go down and just get stuff to kind of, soup it up and have fun with it.
Really? Nothing?
Not really, no. They caught up later.
Okay.
Mopar did catch up. I don't know where they're at now because I've kind of fallen out of it. But I ended up... I had this truck, and Brenda comes out one morning. I'm in the backyard, and I've got the engine out of the truck and the transmission sitting on a picnic table in the backyard. And the truck's completely up on jack stands. I've got the whole drivetrain disassembled. And she's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, I said, "I love this truck, but it's just not right." So I... went over to Transgo. I brought I took the valve body out of the transmission, and I went over to Transgo, and we kind of danced around some of the options, and they gave me an assortment of springs and ball bearings and pins and things, and they're all color coded. So I kind of guessed at what I wanted, and then another buddy of mine, I took the torque converter to him. Because it was too loosey-goosey. It was locking up way too soon. So you weren't really getting into the torque off the line. It was just too soft. So he built me a 3,000 RPM stall torque converter, and I installed the shift kit. And then I took the throttle body off, and I made a bigger throttle body. And I made a set of traction bars for it. I copied a Caltrax style traction bar. Anyways, I made all this.
You couldn't help yourself.
I just made my truck into the way I wanted it. And it took me about 2 months, and I finished the truck. And I took it down to, I think it was Palomar, to the brackets. And the truck was dialed in really, really well. And I could kind of like really make it hit the number I wanted. And I messed with the air temperature control too, to richen up the mixture. And I wasn't done yet. This was like the first foray into it. And I built a fun truck that sounded amazing. I redid the exhaust and stuff on it, but I went to Jack in the Box in the truck. And I was working over, I had 3 facilities for Curtis Wright. One was in Vernon, one was in Linwood, and one was in Santa Ana.
Okay.
And my main office that I had an office was in Vernon. So I would go into this Jack in the Box. And one day I'm sitting in the Jack in the Box, ordered my food, and I'm in line, and this guy comes running up to my window, scared the hell out of me. And he says, "Hey, who did your truck?" And I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Your truck is, I have the same truck, but yours just sounds amazing and it looks awesome." I'm like, "Well, I did it." So this dude worked as a sales executive, and he's got some dough, and he's a wheeler dealer who thinks in a way I never would think in a million years. So he says, "Hey, can we, I'll pull over here and we'll talk." So I'm eating my tacos, we've got the tailgate down, bullshitting. He says, "Well, can you set my truck up like yours?" And I said, "Yeah, sure." I said, "Here's my phone, here's my number, call me." And I'm such a dork. I'm like, "Here, I'll give you my truck and you drive it and I'll fix your truck, and when it's done, I'll give you my truck back." And so I let him borrow my truck, and
What the hell?
But anyways, I just, did it. And we became friends. And then there was this Dodge Truck Owners Club or some shit. I ended up having this big club meeting at my house. I did the first cam swap, what they called an M1 manifold swap, at my house with a bunch of dudes watching.
Now, hold on. You referenced the guy thinks differently than you in any way. What was he thinking? What was the way he thought that you just couldn't get your head wrapped around?
He was a car guy.
Okay.
And fell in love with the truck for the same reasons I did, and was still not totally happy. And he saw my truck, and that's awesome. And he wanted to have what I did so he could reproduce it and sell it. But he didn't tell me that.
Right. But he needed the magic box.
So we become fast friends. Websites and online marketing was still kind of growing at the time in 2000. Mm-hmm. It's not like it is now.
No.
Okay.
It's 20 years ago.
Yeah. So this guy was pretty savvy, and he found a kid up in Sacramento that knew how to build a website and was into these same trucks. So they build this thing to sell parts. He takes his truck and finds like machine shop. Said, "Hey, can you make this?" So he starts making all the stuff that I did and selling it. Then he comes by one day with a Hemi, a 2003 Hemi truck, and he's wanting to do a blower, and I figure that out. And anyways, one day he comes into my shop, at my office. He calls me. He's at your office. I said, "Yeah." And he comes in and he throws a little passbook down on the table. He goes, "Check that out." And open it up, and there's a huge sum of money in this bank account. I'm like, "Holy shit, what's this?" I'm just kind of like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "Look, I'm just going to come clean. I've been making all the shit you made and selling it, and that's how much money I made." Okay? And he goes, "You should think about doing this full time." So I wasn't going to talk about this because it ended badly. But, this was the little window that's missing. I've been dancing around, but I got heavily involved in that. And we had exclusives for North America and the United Arab Emirates to build these wonderful things with another entity involved. And it was very lucrative. But greed killed it. Not my greed, but greed killed it. And I had to recuperate. So
what'd you learn from this process?
That I really never wanted a partner ever again. Like, really had no interest in doing that. And also,
you wanted to control your own destiny, period.
Yeah, and I still let my guard down a couple times, even with the new shop, you know, and with some of the same players. I've let people come back into my life that have let me down. Like, you know, you're born with the benefit of the doubt. When you're first born, you're born with the benefit of the doubt because you haven't screwed anybody.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, there's trust there. I trust you until you don't. You know.
And everybody's given that blessing. It's yours to lose. And I guess some naive thing in my head, I'm still hopeful. Like, I'm hopeful for a world that may never exist, but, you know, you lose the benefit of the doubt. But I guess in my head, everybody should also have the right to earn it back. So I've given people the ability to earn it back, and I have rarely been rewarded with a good outcome. I think it's back to the scorpion and the frog.
Right.
And so people are who they are. So I think what I've really, really learned at this point in my life is that if you know somebody and you know their foibles, their idiosyncrasies that may affect you adversely, but you still like them, then you need to find a way to let them know you realize that and just accept it if it's not going to destroy you. But if it's something that's really bad or disconcerting, you got to let it go. Sometimes when you let go of people, the right people, your whole life gets better instantly. They hold you back. They suck your energy. You know, I talked earlier about when I was younger, I felt like I had all this immense energy. I did. For a bunch of different reasons. We all do. Right. You were running on all cylinders, you know, everything's working so well, and but we're not fully formed. So there's this weird place like I find myself in now where I feel like I understand things better, but man, my guns just don't, they're not firing as good as they used to, you know?
Right. Not as often as long.
Yeah. So, you know, learning to, in business, you know, you can't be all things to all men, but especially in business. It's like, I made a big change at work recently.
What was that?
With my staff. So when I left the corporate world, I really wanted to disengage from that. I had been treated badly. And I was the kind of employee, if you let me free, I would do incredible things for you. So I thought, I'm going to do that. I'm going to bring people on and give them immense freedom and let them blossom. I'll guide them. If they have questions, we'll make sure everybody realizes. I ended up with an environment where everybody's trying to eat each other. They weren't realizing what I was trying to accomplish because I couldn't convey the concept. They were still trapped into, well, if I do good, then the boss will love me. Maybe, I don't know what the hell's going on. These guys are going to listen to this.
Right.
But I had to sit down the other day, and I had almost done this like last year maybe, but I finally put together employee handbooks.
Did you really?
They're done. And I had a meeting on Monday.
How did they take it?
They're actually really cool about it. They were like, you know what? We're kind of like waiting for this because what I did was create an environment which was like sometimes not knowing expectation, you know, is an awful thing.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. I thought they just had an assumption. I thought they just understood that I trusted them and this is all going to work out. And if you make a mistake or whatever, blah, blah, we'll work it. And if you need to leave, blah, blah, blah. If I gave everybody an immense amount of freedom on all levels, but I can operate in that environment.
Yeah,
but not everybody can.
Yeah, it takes a special person to be able to do that.
So I took a leap of faith, and I learned from it, And so I just told the guys, look, I'm going to run it this way. And it's probably an experience you guys have all had before because you've worked at other places. But I'm just going to run this like any other business. But you still have freedom because my door is always open.
There will be structure.
But there is structure. And I'm starting January 1st. This is the start time. These are the break times.
This is lunchtime.
And these are the rules. And it's and everybody's like, okay, all right. Nobody jumped up and said this is heresy,
Right.
How dare you? That didn't happen.
No one threw down their rag. I'm out of here.
No, I mean, and the guys are very candid with me.
It's because you have some of your kids work with you or have worked with you in the past.
Yeah, I have two of my sons working with me, and I have guy like Eric. He's like the first guy that I brought on board, and he's very important, and I've given him everything I know as far as engines are concerned, and he's been branching out in other stuff more recently because he deserves to branch out and have some fun out in the shop and do other things. But
where did you see this evolution in your managerial style change or come from?
Well, what happened was I had an epiphany that I used to manage. It was my job to manage skilled trades. And from experience, skilled trades, we're the biggest prima donnas on the planet. Our egos can run wild in the right environment. And I had to manage not 10, not 20, but sometimes maybe 30 people.
Okay.
So I told myself, why don't I manage my employees? I know how to do it. I was trying to let them manage and be more autonomous, but...
Why did you think that would work in this shop?
Because it's a small box, and we're the goal...
Yeah, your team's what, 7? 6?
It's 6 to 7, depending.
Okay.
But I just thought, this is easy. We're all in the same box. What's the furthest away I am from anybody at any given moment?
Right.
100 feet?
Yeah, Val in the other room if you guys are all in the shop. Yeah.
So communication should be at a high level. We should be able to understand. No. If you're not on the same page, you could be right next to each other. And if you're in some unknown, if I don't realize you think you have to compete with this guy over here, or people are worried about, well, that guy did this, but I didn't do that, and I come in at this time, and that guy comes in this time. Well, I've repeatedly told him it's okay. That's what time he wants to start. And it's just weird how the human dynamic starts to...
Do you also think maybe it's a generational thing too?
I don't know.
Because you do work with a young group.
I do work with a young group,
right?
Yes.
Everybody's under 30.
Eric's over 30. Ian's over 30 now.
Okay.
But it's a young group.
Okay.
The youngest guy in the group is 22 or 23.
Okay. He can barely drink.
Yeah. Well, in fact, I don't think he drinks at all. He chooses not to. But
you run with a young crew.
I do.
So if you ran with guys who, in their 50s, they might have a different perspective.
Well, there's no doubt. They just come from a different place.
Right.
So I just thought
But it's a happy crew. I've been there. They're good guys. They're doing the push-ups when they're having fun.
Yeah.
And pre-COVID, it was happy-go-lucky, good time.
Sure.
But it is a good thing to have structure and for them to understand this is what I expect from you.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Boundaries.
Well, what I try to do is, look.
And you can be free within those boundaries.
Yeah.
But I have to give you a reservation.
Yeah, I think, so pre-COVID, pre-fire.
Yes.
Okay. The margins were good enough to where we're getting stuff done at a high level, and it seemed to be, I just wanted to have a fun environment because sometimes you crave the things you didn't have when you were younger, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe I just wanted to do this experiment.
Okay.
And the experiment didn't pan out the way I wanted. And after the fire and after COVID, making margins is more difficult. Mm-hmm. Even though we're quite busy. We have a lot of challenges right now. parts. Some parts aren't available right now.
And you lost a lot of parts.
And I had a stockpile that would have easily seen us through COVID and into the next decade.
Right, millennial.
And so the whole world changed so much, like too much. And so the guys aren't stupid, and they were there. We rebuilt that shop together. There was a moment when I think they all thought they were going to get fired. But the meeting, the semicircle, was actually me explaining to them that they're now going to become construction workers until we get this place back together.
Well, let's talk about the fire so people understand.
Yeah.
Fire happened when?
A year ago.
Was it?
It was Halloween night, 2019.
2019. You get a call.
Yes. I get a call, wee hours of the morning, from Val. I think there's a fire.
Now, why does Val know?
Because she's a point of contact.
Okay.
So
that poor girl has to get the call from, the fire department.
Well, actually, it's worse than that. Both of us had our phones off.
Oh.
So she got up before me, just in the middle of the night.
Randomly?
Maybe to potty break or something.
Right, yeah.
But her phone had been blowing up. Now, at that time, I had restructured my phone habits and did not keep my phone near my bed at night.
Okay.
So that I could rest.
Yeah.
And not annoy Brenda. Because my phone goes off all the time.
Right. Vibrating, on, off, lights, the whole thing, yeah.
So I don't do that anymore. Now the phone's back on the
nightstand,
nightstand. But I...
So that poor girl gets the call.
Well, and Brenda was on East Coast time because her job was a New York job.
Uh-huh.
And she got up and she went in the kitchen to get a glass of water and sees my phone dancing all over and just a line of messages. So I had been contacted by City of Anaheim, my neighbors, the alarm company, and and when Brenda went out there, Val was actually calling at that moment. So she answered the phone.
Right, because Val's not calling at the wee hours in the morning for the hell of it.
And Val was half asleep, and she's like, I think there's a fire. And she sent me a text, and it was a screenshot of our security cameras that she did to send to me. So I get on my security cameras, and I'm like, you think there's absolutely a fire. It's like, holy shit. But the fire is pretty much done. There's a foot of fire retardant foam on the ground. There's firemen everywhere. I jump in my Chevy. I call Tim Roper, who lives fairly close. I said, Tim, there's been a fire at the shop. Can you please head down there? I'm on my way, but he's like really close. I said, I just need somebody, boots on the ground, so I got a better picture of things.
How long of a drive is that for you?
Normally half an hour if there's no traffic at all. I got there in like 25 minutes.
Is it the longest 25 minutes you've had in that?
Yep. And I was about halfway there, and Tim called me. And I take the call on the Bluetooth, and he's like, hey, John, it's really bad. I'm like,
From what you can see in your footage of the security cameras, can you only see the auxiliary shop, or can you see the main shop as well? Like, you don't know where the fire's at. You just see fire.
Well, all I had seen was like the exterior shots, and I looked into the main shop where the service bays are, and I could see like smoke and debris in the air.
But all the lights are off, right? So
lights are off.
So it's dark anyway.
So it's the like infrared.
Right.
And I'm like, and I couldn't tell if the flames were coming in or what was going on, but I knew there was debris and smoke getting in through the cracks.
Sure.
And then outside, I saw firemen everywhere, and I saw what looked like where they had cut the bay doors.
Right.
But I didn't know if it was just what had burned.
Right.
Was it just one of the cars? What happened? So when Tim called me, I said, how bad is it? He goes, John, it's really bad. I go, well, can we move the cars out? And, he goes, John, it's all gone. I'm like, what do you mean it's all gone? He goes, there's nothing in that building left. It's all gone. It's burned. There's nothing in that building salvageable.
How big was the square footage in that auxiliary building?
A couple thousand square feet, and it's super tall.
Right, because you had a stacked car in there.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I had pallet racks full of parts, and I had the machine shop on the far left.
Yeah.
Bay 2 was a big 4-post that was set up to do exhaust work and alignments and stuff. And
you had rows and rows and rows of parts.
Yep. It's all gone. I mean, it was gone. When I got there, I was like, wow.
So you come around that corner. What do you see? I mean, do you see...
water and foam everywhere.
Right. Do you seeing a glow from the distance? And are you seeing the firemen on the lift shooting water down?
That had already taken place. And the real images of everything I was able to review on security cameras. We rewound everything.
Right.
We determined that the fire started next door. That neighbor's work truck caught on fire just by itself, ignited the rest of the fleet, and then his pallets and shit that were up in some racking next to my building. And
then caught your building, and they just kind of carried.
And it's just a perfect storm with Santa Ana winds blowing 40 miles an hour. My building is steel. It's listed on my insurance as non-flammable. My building's gone. It's been razed. But that was a tough one, and then
what goes through your mind when you drive up and there's water pouring down the cul-de-sac and trucks and hoses? Are you just
I was
numb?
I've seen a lot of crap in my life, so I've seen some pretty crazy stuff, and
but this is your stuff now.
It's my stuff, and I've lost things before. Like I said, like when I was a kid, we moved a lot. I lost a lot of things.
Yeah, but you're an adult now. This is your business.
Yeah, but I at first, I got to tell you, initially I had a really strong sinking feeling, like really sinking feeling. And I'm like, wow, what am I going to do? And I started to react. But then I think I told you about this before. There's something I do that I've taught myself to do. I try to not overreact because I was a hothead for most of my life, and I had to change that. And the only way to do it was to, like when I deal with other people, I observe them and I try to make a decision and help them.
Right.
It's not that easy to do that to yourself. And I tried to do it, and I couldn't do it. And I'm like, well, how can I do that? And I really thought about it, and I analyzed it. And I watch. It's like I step out. It's hard to explain. I observe myself. Like I actually when I feel myself. I've got to the point where when I feel myself ramping up, because it happens real fast.
Sure. Right.
You meet someone or somebody walks up and they say, "Hey, asshole." And the old John would be like, "Hey, what are you talking about?" And it ramps up.
0 to 100. Boom.
Now it's like, okay, he just called me. I don't let myself go to that place. Mm-hmm. I let the guy say whatever the hell they want to say. And then I'm like, okay, how can I help you? Because all he's done is air came out of his mouth.
Right.
It's up to me to make a determination what to do with that air.
So you use that trick when you're seeing a building on fire?
Yep. I felt myself like losing it, like an emotional response. So I just step back, and it's like I'm looking at myself, and I don't want to. I'm like, all right, there you are, and it happened already. Mm-hmm. It's like it's happened. So the best way to deal with it is to step back for a moment and not worry about what you can't deal with.
Right.
It's so easy, but it wasn't always that easy for me. But this point in my life when the fire happened, I'd already kind of built this ability to do that. So you can't sweat it. It's done. So the thing you have to sweat and get on is what can I do right now? Like, what can we do? So it took us a while to be able to go near the building because the magnesium was glowing in there.
How many days?
It glowed for about 24 hours. And the fire department was on standby in case it flared up again. So finally, the the steel building had buckled, and the city said it's unsafe. You can't go in there.
Duh. It's a buckled building, of course, yeah.
So I very much wanted to go in there.
Sure.
And I wanted to tear the thing down immediately. But
why? Just to
get moving and start figuring out what we're going to do.
Next step. What are we doing?
But then all the things you don't know, you start learning about. All this stuff that's you're not aware of, all of a sudden you're made aware of because the city says don't go in there. And then you call the insurance company and they're dragging their feet. And you've got X amount of dollars in the bank. You're like, okay, all right. And I'm thinking, the insurance company's going to do this. No, you have to tell them what you want to do. It's almost like if you have a business, you better have some insurance. And now that I know what I know, because when I first started Benton Performance, I had a general manager and a 20, on-board accountant receptionist. Okay?
Right.
And I'm thinking, I have immense freedom. I can go work on cars, do my thing, work with the guys, and the general manager and the accountant, receptionist assistant are going to keep me out of trouble. Mm-hmm. They'll make sure my insurance is taken. They'll pay the bills. No. If you have a small business, and I mean a real small business, 2 or 3 employees or maybe 10, if your sales, maybe you're less than 2-3 million a year, it does not behoove you to have those people in your life. You need to be Lord and Master.
Touch everything, know everything.
You need to be like Jean-Luc Picard on the Enterprise, man. Every nut and bolt, man. You got to be good old Will Shatner, You really have to be in touch with that ship because...
it can get away from you quick?
Oh, yeah, because if you are under the assumption that somebody who is not like an invested member of that company, if they're getting a salary or whatever, that if you think they really have your back, you're delusional.
Yeah, your name's on it.
That's right. You're responsible for all that.
If it goes to shit, this receptionist doesn't get called out.
Yeah, that's correct. They don't lose their house.
Right.
They don't lose anything.
No one remembers the shop manager screwing it up.
Yeah.
It's John Benton Performance that screwed it up.
Yeah. So just being totally straight about it, you have to be the master and commander. It's think of it as a ship. It's this mighty ship, and you got to make sure that the crew is following your directions, and you have to inspect it and look at it and trim it here and there and fix it and maintain it. And that's something you are directly responsible for. Now, some of the small things you can't sweat. There are things you can delegate, but delegate the things that aren't going to sink you,
Right.
I've learned a lot. Because I experiment. I like to,
What would you tell young John then from that experience? If you could do it all over again, starting in 2005, be like, hey, young John, be aware of this.
Oh, well, I would have, I did seek the advice of really skilled businessmen before I made the big move to Anaheim.
Okay.
And a good friend of mine, John Beck, and he said, hey, put a business plan together. Let's look at it. I'll help you all I can. And I put it before him. And he told me exactly what I should have done. And I didn't listen.
And he was right.
He was absolutely right. He says, you don't need this person, and you don't need that, and you don't need this, and you should do that. And I'm like, well, I kind of want to do this, and I this will help me to do that. He's like, okay, have at it. And he was right. He was right.
His experience, he knew.
Oh, absolutely. He was
From where you were going to be, your income, your shop of size, your clients and customers, you didn't need those other bells and whistles.
Remember earlier, and I told you, if somebody's willing to give you their time and mentor you, you should probably shut your mouth and listen to what they say.
That's what you would have told young John?
Yep.
Shut up and listen to Mr. Beck?
Yep. Because that worked for me for a long, long time. But then I became self-aware. Mm-hmm. That's another thing.
Right.
Self-awareness is a big deal. And I think a lot of people may live their whole lives and never experience that. And I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but because it happened to me. I know it happened to me. I remember becoming self-aware. And it's kind of when I decided to, like, it wasn't a nervous breakdown at that table. It was self-awareness. It's like, wait a minute. I'm better than this. I'm greater than this. Why am I letting all my future why is it in the hands of these people? I'm taking control right now. And I did. Now, don't get me wrong. I have no delusions about having control. You just prepare the best you can. Right. And to me, good luck is just being prepared for when an opportunity comes along. That's really good luck. If good luck could be right in front of you, but you're too stupid to reach out and grab it, that's, it's sad. Right. But, but I've done good, and I feel pretty good about where we're at. I mean, we're producing beautiful things against all odds. We had that fire, and I was very creative with the way I used the insurance, and the community stepped up in a big way. I had some clients do a GoFundMe, which I did not want to do. It felt like the biggest failure ever. But when friends that I trusted came to me and said, John, you need to do this, because they looked at my books, they looked at what the insurance company was doing for business interruption, right, versus how we're going to open the shop again. And my pockets were empty. I spent it all after the fire. I maxed everything out, trying to make sure everybody got paid, pay the bills. I never defaulted on a thing, anything. And that's so great. How did you manage the team after that fire? When they all sit around and probably think, oh my God, we're all unemployed. That's kind of what happened, and I could feel the tension. Sure, you got young kids who are just like, oh God. Oh, yeah. And so I went out one day and I said, everybody bring it in. And I could see I could feel it. They're right. Like, oh man. I was He's going to let us all go. And I'm like, okay, hey, here's the deal. You're not getting fired. Because I'm only interrupting you because they're 25 years old, 27 years old, and they're looking at you going, I'm just putting words into their mouth, but he's going to retire. He's going to call it right now. He's going to close this thing up, walk away. He's going to take whatever insurance money he's got. He's going to be like, screw it, I'm good. That was the easy way out. Right. If I'm 25, that's what I'm thinking. Mm-hmm. I'm thinking, John's this broke his heart and he's walking away. I could have went that route. Sure. And I wouldn't have faulted you. No, I would be better off in so many ways had I done that. But you didn't. You rallied the troops. I did. I told them, I said, look, you guys, I said, don't freak out, because a couple of them were just looking at the floor. I'm sure. And I'm like, you guys, try not to cry. Cheer up. Listen, you're not fired. I said, you're all going to become construction workers, and I'm going to show you how to do stuff. And as long as you are in, I'm cool. If anybody wants to leave right now, I won't hold it against you. There's unknown territory, and there's no guarantee we're going to pull through this. But the only chance we have is to really be efficient and spend what money we have left in the best possible ways, or we're sunk. So everybody's like, oh no, we're good. Let's do it. So we couldn't work on cars. There was no way, because the insurance company's like, well, you still have the bays. And they were under the assumption that we were still able to do business. I'm like, no, you don't understand. These are cars in here, and these are bays. But all the parts and some of the engines and shit that went with these cars, it's all burned up. Right. And the machine shop is gone. The parts are gone. This was a symbiotic deal. Yeah. These two buildings bounce off each other. I said, and I explained to the insurance company, because what they wanted to give me was like not cool. And but the long and the short of it is, all those dudes learned how to do a lot of neat shit that they never done before. They're out there framing and nailing stuff together and
cutting
and painting and patching and it was really cool to watch the team work together, you know? And so at the end of it, we have what is Benton Performance today. And I can't take full credit for it. All I did was steer the boat. Okay? But the guys, we were all hands on deck and really pushing hard. And I mean, it was nasty. We all looked like coal miners.
Yeah. Yeah.
We were filthy for weeks and weeks and weeks. We would clean the shit out of it. And then the next door neighbor, who wasn't as focused as us, would just track all this carbon and shit all through because we share the space.
Yeah, that driveway you share.
And you know, I had to go over there and kind of say, hey, you guys, you know, what the hell?
You're tracking dirt through my house.
You know, we're building beautiful things over here. You guys are cutting stone. It's beautiful, but come on. Please stop. Or we'll help you. Whatever you need, we're here. And but we took care of business, and we reopened, let's see, like 4 months.
Yeah, right? April.
We opened in March.
Was it March? Okay.
So we managed to rebuild and reopen in record time. I made a deal with the insurance company because I had business interruption good for like $1 million. And I told the insurance company, look, if you work with me, we're never going to spend $1 million. You know, if you guys want to drag and slog it out, I'm going to use up every bit of the $1 million. But if you work with me, we do this for $300, $500, I don't know. But if you help me, we can survive this together with the least amount of cost. Now, as far as what I lost, that's a whole other deal.
Right.
All the customers were taken care of. The people who own the building were taken care of. Business interruption, payroll, all that got taken care of. But a lot of the equipment, the way the insurance works, insurance is a wicked thing. You really, if you have insurance, you may not have insurance. I recommend everyone in business today, tomorrow, get their policy out and really, really look at it.
Go over it, make sure.
And make their broker do their job. You know, part of the reason my coverage was screwed up was because I depended on some employees to take. I thought, you know, it's just a mundane task.
Right.
You know, get the insurance, pay the bill. At the old shop, the broker sent somebody down. They looked at the property, made suggestions, and I had really good coverage. Nobody ever came out to the new shop.
Really?
And I was getting ready to race in Mexico, and I was really super busy, and I kept sending emails, hey, you guys got to take care of this. And then I made an assumption it was all taken care of. They never transferred my property insurance, like tangible property, like those parts, that insurance, because I still have a unit in La Habra where the old shop was.
Right.
I still have that little shop storage area over there, which has to be insured. They never moved the bulk of that insurance over to Anaheim.
Ouch.
So that was painful. So, and because I wasn't like analyzing every little nut and bolt of my ship, I learned the hard way. So I did the best of what we had. The GoFundMe was like $55,000, like from the community at large.
That's unbelievable.
When we got back on our feet, we had some stuff made up as thank you gifts that we sent out to people who had contributed. But I am forever thankful to all those people, and forever thankful to the crew that stuck by us and stuck by the shop and helped, and other people that came by to help. You know, people volunteered to come help sweep and clean stuff, which was amazing. How
is it working in the shop with your kids?
Well, that's a difficult thing. It's getting better now. What happened?
Because you're not dad at work.
Well, that's the thing, and I realized that. But what happened with the boys is that it's getting better now. But it's a dynamic that can be stressful because if I get upset, they don't take it as an employee. They take it as a son. So they've disappointed their dad. And I've had to very recently talk to my youngest and say, hey, when I come at you here at the shop and I say, God damn it, you need to be here on time, or you need to weld that correctly or undo that, it's not a personal attack.
Right. It's employee number one, not...
Yep.
Yeah.
You're just a dude. And I have an expectation. I'm trying to convey that. So don't take it as we're in the backyard. It's Thanksgiving.
Right.
And I'm telling you, hey, how dare you eat your turkey like that? It's not that. We've got to get a job done. This is what bosses do to employees. Mm-hmm. That's all. And it takes a lot of work to get through that. A lot of work. There's a lot. And there's dynamics at play. Well,
yeah, then it becomes favoritism. John doesn't ever yell at him.
Yep.
Or he,
But I got to tell you right now.
he doesn't yell at that employee, and it's two brothers.
But I'll tell you right now, the guys at my shop know that I don't pull punches with the boys. Like if I
chew some ass, you're chewing some ass.
I'm chewing some ass.
Right.
And sometimes I'll chew their ass harder.
Sure. Which then is another dynamic.
Yep.
You're only chewing my ass harder because I'm your son.
Exactly. So it's a catch-22, and it's an interesting dynamic. But you know what? It's also a blessing. And sometimes, I often tell people I love them. I do it a lot. I might tell you that sometimes after a phone call, and not that it's something I remind people of, that I do care about them.
Right.
And I do care about my employees, and I do.
It shows.
I know that a lot of I went through all the management training. I've been to all the seminars, the specialized training.
So you did take some of that stuff and educate yourself.
But a lot of the tenets of those training seminars are never call your staff family. Never never have this personal level. Well, you know what? I am still going to keep that in my deal because this isn't the kind of business where annually you look at the staff and cut the 10% of the low performers.
Right.
I hate that. I mean, you got to do what you got to do in business, but I'd rather maybe, because it takes X amount of people to get the revenue to the right place to keep all the gears turning, this is different. So like I told the team on Monday, I said, look, I like this team. I have faith in this team. I just need us to get all the oars in the water going the same direction. Because right now, that's not where we're at.
Right.
And I tried the other way, thinking we can spin around in this little circle here and we'll be fine. But it's really a sphere that we have to navigate, and we have to figure that out. We have to...
What's your expectations like by February or March for them to pull in the same direction with your new, I don't want to say guidelines, but new expectations?
Well, it's all it is look, I was very frank with them. I said, look, I'm going to have meetings with them leading up.
Periodicals.
Yeah, and so, but basically there's now a employee handbook. I'm going to go over with them one more time.
Okay.
They're all going to sign a sheet. It says they have the book and they read it.
Covers your butt and theirs.
And that's the rule book. So in the event there's a situation, I don't have to explain it to them, but I can explain to them why I'm making the decision, because I really thought about this document. It's tailored to our shop. These are the rules. You break the rules and you get a warning. And if you can't rise above that, then we need to separate our relationship, because it's not fair to, want to talk about fairness. You want to talk about, he said, she said, no. That all goes out the window today, because this document spells it all out. This is how a company works.
Right.
I've done it before. I did it a million times. I made this document, with the help of ADP and Val, we figured it out,
How do you keep yourself out of a rut? Because I mean, you're at a shop all day. Mm-hmm. Like, what keeps you out of a rut?
Well, I have things to occupy my mind. You have to have some downtime. It doesn't mean laying around in a bed or getting shit-faced, in the backyard, which I'm not really a good lay around in the bed kind of guy, but I might get shit-faced in the swing in the backyard. But, Brenda and I have a good relationship now. We've had our trials and tribulations.
Like every marriage, sure.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we've been right there at the precipice. But now, we actually enjoy each other's company. It's a big deal. I mean, I can't tell you how many guys I know that they sleep in a different bedroom at night. Uh-huh. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. Maybe it's just because she snores or something. I don't know. But Brenda and I snore together, and we do everything together. In the middle of all the fire and all this crazy stuff going on, a Unimog fell into my lap.
Right. Yeah.
Just out of the sky. I mean, just something I had seen years prior, and I'm broke as hell. And this guy calls me up because I left a note. And out of the blue, during all this craziness, hey, you still want these trucks? You got to get them the hell out of here. So there were 2 of them. So I basically sold one for the price of both while I was making the deal with this guy. Literally like texting on the phone while I'm talking to this guy, and parlayed one to get possession of the other. So I kept one. The other one actually belongs to a guy next door to me. And Brenda and I made that our project together. Husband and wife. We worked on that Unimog for 10 straight weeks. And
that's a commitment.
Yeah. And because when we had our grand opening, it wasn't running.
No.
But I had gotten the sound system to work.
Of course, you got the sound system to work.
Because it's a long story, but this thing was a promotional tool that for Lil Jon the Rapper.
Yeah.
Some of the stuff was still there, and I brought it back to life. It's hilarious. And I've kept most of that stuff in there. It's pretty funny. But Brenda and I spent every weekend, because COVID happened, and she's not an essential worker or anything, but so anyways, it's just a situation where let's just work on the Unimog. And then she got it in her head, well, our 33rd wedding anniversary is June 13th. Let's get it running by then, because I want to go camping in the Unimog for our anniversary.
What a woman. That's great.
So we did it. We literally got that thing running, and I felt confident, and we jumped in that thing, drove across Los Angeles, and ironically, that's when the protests were happening, pretty heavy.
And you're in this like giant assault vehicle looking vehicle.
So I just thought it would be hilarious to drive the Unimog through LA and Hollywood and then loop back around to La Cañada and then go over Angeles, the ACH, into Palmdale, and then out into the Mojave, which is what we did.
Just found a spot and made camp?
Yeah. And we had a blast.
That's awesome.
Absolute blast. And I think the top speed reached during the whole entire trip was 60 miles an hour downhill. We were on ACH going 20 miles an hour up grades, and people were like, oh, man. And I would get out of the way as soon as we could get a turnout. But there were times when, man, I'm sorry, guys, but we're going up this hill.
It's a beast.
It goes everywhere, but slow, And but that was one thing. And then I have my motorcycles. I have my drum kit set up in the garage. I got a 1978 Premier drum kit all set up the way I like it. These aren't selfish endeavors, but they're just things I enjoy.
Yeah, and that's what you need.
Yeah, and they're not frivolous in any way. I mean, it's nothing that's, you don't have to be rich or anything to have some of this stuff. It's just dedication to the task or the whatever. Like, I'm not the ultimate drummer. I'm not. I know that. But I love
beating on that thing.
Oh, man, it's so much fun. And I recently, I've got a Ian 1 a promotional guitar from the Snap-on truck. It's a little Fender guitar, an electric guitar. And I bought an iRig that plugs into my iPhone and has a jack for the guitar, and put on headphones, and you have an app, and I can pick any pedal set, any amp ever made, and simulate the sound.
That's great.
And just sit there and jam, and Brenda's reading a book, and there's some stupid program on the TV, I don't even know what it is, and I got the headphone, I can't hear anything but the guitar, and I'm just, just making noises and having a good time, and, trying to get that kind of to work again. And so, and if we didn't have all that, there's still something to do. I mean,
right.
On any given weekend night, I have a fire pit in the backyard. I got my outdoor kitchen that I built. It's very simple, but it's permanent. And we have our little patio, and we have a swing. Brenda and I built the swing out of oak. We built it together, and we like to sit on our swing and have a rum and Coke and watch the fire. And she'll be playing Animal Crossing, and I'll be playing solitaire, and it's heaven.
It's perfect.
It's perfect.
What's the future hold for Benton Performance?
Well, ultimately, as a legacy shop, which is kind of what I share with the guys, I often tell them, look, I'm not going to do this forever. At some point, life is going to happen. Mm-hmm. And whether that means I retire or I expire, the whole idea is to make this place bigger than ourselves. Make it to where it's set up and it just works. And we do have a good system. We have a very good system for tracking time and parts and all that good stuff. That's just the serious business stuff, right?
Right.
And now I'm creating another possibility by organizing it on a more professional level as far as how to manage egos and personalities and behaviors, right? So but what the future holds is unknown. My hope is that the guys in the shop, because they are young, will continue to learn. I've got a good 10, 15 years left in me. Keep transferring that. And the other really cool thing, Matt, is that I teach them what I know. Mm-hmm. But what's really rewarding is when they mix what I teach them with their own discoveries. Sometimes they're like, oh, I figured out a way to do it. I'm like, hey, that's pretty awesome. Do that. So that's very rewarding, not just for me, but for them and the shop.
Sure.
And there's a few things that are on hold. I love education. And oftentimes people that work at the shop, under normal times, they'd be over at Cal State Fullerton or Fullerton Community College or Cerritos, because I'm like, hey, you need to take this class. Now, I can't do that right now, but as soon as we get through this mess, I will continue that process. And I hope to continue sponsoring young men, whether they stay with the company or not, mm-hmm. To give them the experience that is afforded in this box, this place called Benton Performance. So, if someday they say you can't have internal combustion, but you can have a chassis with an electric motor in it, then that's what we'll do. If they say that you can have internal combustion engines, but it's really expensive and you got to pay this tax and this fee, it still means it will be around, because something should be noted here. There are not a lot of people that do what we do.
Yeah, no.
It seems like there is because we're in California.
Right.
But in the world, there's not a lot of these cars, and there's far fewer people to make them live and keep them at a high state of finish. So this is a leap of faith. This is a passion-driven business. If I wanted to make a bunch of money, I would do manufacturing or something. I would figure out a way to do my own version of Make America Great Again. Mm-hmm. Okay? And I would get the same kind of people and show them how to make things. But I thought it would just be fun to shift gears after doing that for all those decades to focus on this little craft and teach young men the difference between, this bolt and this washer and the rules of fastening things and the rules of non-marring it with a tool and how to drill a hole and simple little things, and then work up to this is how you weld and this is how you grind. This is how you sweep. You'd be surprised how many kids don't know how to sweep or mop.
Oh, God, yeah. Because they've never done it at home, so they surely don't know how to do it in a shop.
But my guys know how to mop. It's not a mundane task. It's part of the mix. Mm-hmm. One of the hard things early on was, especially with my son Ian, because of stupidity in the shop, denigration, making people feel less because of the job they do.
Right.
That is the most horrific thing. I don't want that in my shop. It existed in my shop. But let's just say
So how did that happen? How did it creep in?
It was kind of insidious, man. It was, I don't know. It was just a lot of, psychological warfare.
Yeah.
It's alive and well. I mean, people can be really mean to each other, but I think early on it's like...
They like to push people's buttons.
Yeah, and it probably boils down to that, because if people recognize how to push people's buttons...
Yeah,
it's
how far can I push Mike's buttons?
I do chassis work. You do coach work.
Right. I could train a monkey to do that.
Yeah, and the reality is one of the most important things we do at my shop is coach work. The ability to assemble a car. Make sure that everything's straight and in the right place. And, the stitching's lined up and the dash is on there right and all the gauges are in line. Not everybody does that well. So getting somebody to do all that coach work is really important. So
what does that take? Attention to detail?
Absolutely. But see, the thing when I had the meeting on Monday with all the guys, I said, there's no job here important than another job. Whether you're sweeping or building an engine, those are all equally important. There's a way to do them, and you should do them the best way you can. And but to say it's like when I was in the corporate world, we gave one of the highest awards you could get with the gold pen and a paid vacation to a janitor. And he deserved it. Now, I know what everybody made, and I know that janitor didn't make a ton of money, but he's treated well. He made good salary. He had benefits like everybody else. But he's a janitor. He was a dedicated. He kept that place awesome. But over the period he had been there, which was well before my tenure, he had never missed a day in 30 years.
Wow.
He never was late, never sick. I mean, he never, ever took anything other than his salary. Now, I'm sure he had been sick. I'm sure he had bad days. But he always greeted you with a smile. He always came to work excited. He took care of his equipment. He took care of his closet, which is a bit bigger than a closet because it's a big facility. But that place was awesome. And there were other people that could have maybe gotten that award. But there was nobody that exemplified a fully dedicated person.
Like he did.
Yeah. And this guy, sweet man, been married to the same woman for a million years, put 4 kids through college, and there were guys that worked at that shop, skilled trade dudes that were making 5 times more money, had been married 3 times. Their lives were a frickin' mess. They're late all the time.
Right.
They're always got some problems, some drama going on. And I'm like, wow. So is happiness from the money? No, obviously.
Yeah.
Is happiness from the high position, lead electrician, nope, apparently not. Because their happiness was, as far as you could tell, was non-existent. So, you know, I'm only bringing this up because you know, I've seen all kinds of people do all kinds of crazy stuff.
Yeah.
But I've also seen people live very productive, fun, fulfilling lives just by deciding to be happy. Because that gentleman's attitude was his ace in the hole. So you can learn from that. I learned from little things like that.
Sure. Those are big.
So earlier when I told you about, you know, you're being dipped, you know, or you're in the firing squad, you know, sometimes you just got to smile and say, okay, it's just the way it is. Let's move on. And don't go to the reactive mode. Try to suppress that. Confront, but don't react. You can't be passive and successful.
No.
But you can confront without overreacting.
Yeah.
You know, you have this portrait of Bruce Lee here, right?
Yeah.
If he was alive today, you know, he would express something like that, that a calm warrior is more successful than an upset, out of control
Oh, absolutely.
warrior, you know? You know, you shoulder your weapon, take aim, and boom. Or you spray and pray, you know?
Right.
Which guy do you want to be? You know, waste a bunch of ammo, make a mess.
Or you want to shoot that bird with one shot.
Well, I've done that, yes.
Yeah. All right, and one word. One word. Give me one word for 912.
That's not fair, Matt.
Life's not fair.
Yeah, that's a true statement.
I should put that on a bumper sticker.
That's true. I'm sure it exists. I have Nuke the Gay Whales for Jesus on my bumper sticker, but let's see here. One word. Well, for me, I'm gonna say passion. That's the word. Because it's a very, very powerful force in my life, and it's been an absolute accelerant as far as my passion is concerned. And it still puts a smile on my face every time I see it, and it drives me. I mean, it was the seed and the kernel of everything I have, with the exception of my personal relationships. But passion.
That's a good one. John, I cannot thank you enough for spending the time with me and talking about your business, your personal life, career decisions, choices, family, dropping knowledge. It's been a pleasure, an absolute pleasure.
I'll take your word for it, Matt.
Oh, trust me.
The tacos weren't bad.
The tacos weren't bad. For those who don't know, we had a little break in between and had some Wahoos. And if Wahoos would like to do a sponsorship on Just a Good Conversation, please get in touch with me. But I'm serious. I cannot thank you enough. It was an absolute pleasure. You got a great shop. Everybody in there. Love going there.
I appreciate that. And this was very cathartic, and the cheapest therapy I think anyone has ever had.
There was no therapy here. It was just two guys talking about good times.
Just a good conversation,
Just
right?
a good conversation with John Benton.
Right on, man.
Thank you, man.
Salud.
All right. This is Matt Brown, and you listen to Just a Good Conversation. Please hit the subscribe button as well as the like button. You can always follow us on Instagram and Twitter, as well as the website, justagoodconversation.com. Thank you for listening.